Hi, hello, and welcome to another review of Love is Blind. And today we will be reviewing episode 9 and 10.
I wanna get to your clothes, gotta get it right now. I wanna push all the limits with you right now. So what you feeling?
So I have my counterpart, BFF girlfriend, Terrence Court with me, reviewing episodes 9 and 10. And we're gonna go ahead and jump into like a couple of quick things that came out for us, and then I'm going to go ahead and add some clips into the video so we can talk about our responses to those clips. So first impressions, what are some things that kind of jumped out for you throughout both episodes?
Yeah, I think this is really reaching the phase of the relationship where you're kind of coming out of the honeymoon. Again, everything is accelerated, but people are coming out of the honeymoon and dealing with the realities of actually living day to day with the person, interacting with them and building an actual life around that relationship. And I think that's the hard part, right? Looking and falling for someone is very easy, but building a life around that relationship with the person is what is the hardest part.
And I think one thing we're not going to really touch on today, so I just want to make sure I make that point, is I appreciated the way that Jonny and Amy met with Amy's dad and how engaging it went. And Jonny got Amy's father's hand in marriage, so to speak, like he got the permission. Yeah. I thought that was amazing. So cool. Let's go ahead and jump into nitty-gritty of the rest of these couple of episodes. Let's start with AD and Clay. So I'm going to play the clip here of AD and Clay having the conversation with AD's mom. Check it out.
So you don't think the times when we're just laughing, gossiping, and stuff like that, those are not bonding? Those are not, I'm asking you though. You get clarity.
We've had a few moments,
Yeah.
yes, for sure.
But you don't think it's enough?
No, I don't.
It's called grace. I just think that both of you have to give each other grace. What I want to say, I mean no disrespect, but I'm going to say this because I'm 59 years old and I've been married for close to 24 years and I can do that. I think that you have to understand his work schedule, but it has to be a balance. Now, I understand that you have to go to work and it's from one location, whatever, but if someone is important, you make the time, period. If the love is there, you make the time, period. Marriage is hard, okay? It is the most sacred institution there is. And I say that even though my marriage failed, but 23 years, that's a nice run, you know? I want the very best for both of you. And with the right person, marriage is beautiful.
Yep. So now that you've heard the clip, seen the clip, what are your thoughts on the conversation with AD, Clay, and AD's mom?
Yeah, I think that AD's mom did a really good job of hearing and addressing the insecurities of both her daughter and Clay. Her perspective, I think, was very, very healthy. Kind of like a parent who's been through it all and can kind of address things. And I think that's beneficial, right? That she has also gone through a divorce instead of, being someone who has had, never had to experience that. And she was able to address a lot of Clay's concerns or encourage him in a way that, I don't think a lot of people would have tried unless they have been through, divorce. It seems that AD gets very concerned when Clay expresses his misgivings, his concerns about himself. And I think what he is trying to do is show some transparency and really ask for grace in the future as he's working through things, grace and guidance, right? And I want her to accept that and not be so worried that he's worried about these things, because he should be worried about them, right? And I think that's what AD's mother really did. She was like, I hear what you're saying. These are concerns, but like, don't shoulder the trauma from your parents, right? You have to deal with it, but their story is not your story. And the same thing to AD, which, I mean, AD doesn't have those same problems because clearly her mother has addressed all of that, through her life. So I like to see that she's doing that for Clay. He really needs it.
It's a good point on that. Well, on all of it. All of that was some really good stuff. And then piggybacking on something that you said, as far as AD not having the concerns that Clay has, to me, that's a good example of what good parenting looks like, where a child is able to thrive and be, independent in the world, be able to interact and have very positive interactions. I think AD is beginning to take on and internalize a lot of Clay's stuff. And I feel like what AD needs to do now, which is what her mom was encouraging her to do, was not just to try at being supportive at Clay, just do it.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, AD kept saying, I'm trying, mama, I'm trying. She was like, don't try, just do it. And I think someone looking at that might see it as, why is she telling her not to try? But I think the importance is in the language, because when we are telling ourselves that we're trying at something, it means that when we may not be giving our full intention, our full attitude, power, love, devotion to whatever particular actions. And so the mom is indicating that it's not a try. You're doing it. You're doing it. Keep doing it. Yeah. And I think that was really important. Any other feedback about Clay and AD?
The only other thing I wanted to call out was they have their issues about quality time and, work. Mm-hmm. And I gotta say, I'm fully on board with what Clay is saying there. I think, AD has the grace of not going directly back to work, and her having an abnormal work schedule, right? Because she, is a real estate agent, but also works at a nightclub, I think is going to be more of a stress on the relationship than Clay's kind of work. And so right now, she should be willing to extend him that grace, specifically because he will have to extend her grace in the future, right? So I hope she's recognizing that. They didn't highlight that really, although I suspect that there was an aspect of that to the conversation, because she did bring it up to her mother, but they didn't really focus too much on her mother's response, although I think they did show it.
Yeah, and I think in the previous episode, I don't know if it was in 7 and 8, I know we didn't really talk about it, but the conversation that Clay and AD, Clay's mom and Clay's sister, that they had, they kind of fleshed out a little bit more about the time. And the mom indicated in that sense, like, whatever is important to you, you're going to make a time. You're going to make a time to do it. And I think they have to also walk into the marriage with the expectations of how much time they're going to be able to have together and how to make the most use of that time, because quality time looks differently to different people. For one person, it could be going to the movies and watching a movie together and eating some popcorn and then coming home, and then that's your quality time. For me, I don't just want to watch a movie with you. I want to be able to have a dialogue. I want to learn more about you. And there's always things that you can learn about someone. It doesn't matter how long that you've been with them. And that's what true partnership looks like. And I think that's what they need to work towards. Like, it's not, oh, I didn't see him 24 hours in this day. It's more so about the time spent. This is important. And I think that's what Clay, like you were saying, was pointing out to AD, like, we enjoy our gossip. We enjoy our time together. We kiki. We have a good time when we're together. Why is that not enough? I think because of the constraints of the experiment, I think AD is looking at it like, in addition to her schedule being very free, I think she's looking at it like, well, everybody else is spending so much time with their partners. I'm not spending so much time with mine. And so maybe my relationship is not as significant. Those are the lies that we tell ourselves as women when we begin to compare our relationship to other people based on all these different factors. But the reality is that if what you're doing in a relationship works for you, you're happy and you're actually truly content in that relationship, then accept it as such and not try to anticipate other things from other people because other people need that in their relationship.
Right.
You know, don't make an issue out of nothing.
Agreed.
Great. So let's move into the next clip. This is going to be about Jeramey and Laura having the conversation with Jeramey, with Laura's family, actually. So Laura's sister and Laura's mom. And then also in episode 10, some of the exchange that we may have identified at the pool party.
If you make her into a princess and put her on a pedestal, she'll walk all over you.
And hate that she gets away with it. I think they both really care, but seeing a little bit of button heads here today, I don't know if it's in jest or what. You love this guy?
Yeah.
You guys talk pretty harshly to each other sometimes. I'd like to see you come out of it on the other end.
Yeah.
Feeling like you're with a person. But honestly, you know, playing up those crazy things about the shirts, it's just fun. It's just part of a personality. What is it about that?
It's a turnoff.
He seems to do well in social settings, which we love, right? I love the Hawaiian shirt thing. I know that's
I
like
cannot
for you,
believe
but like,
you
listen, I love it.
Why do you like?
Well, because it's a sense of self-expression. And for me, like if somebody loves something, like I'm behind that.
Right? To me, it was more like you're a grown-ass man that has a really nice sense of style. You have confidence. But it was like he was doing it to like be silly. And
Which I really do love, because when I see something that somebody likes and it's truly something that they enjoy, then I love that and I want to celebrate that.
Maybe he does really like them. I need to quit shitting on them.
Well, right. My husband, he loves Hawaiian shirts. Guess what's happening? Guess what's going in his wardrobe as soon as I can get him in there?
They could probably share shirts, to be honest.
We can do that.
There's a whole closet upstairs that I'm like,
well, I don't want to take his Hawaiian shirts from him.
bless.
Where the fuck is Jeramey?
Yes. I need all the answers.
Where is that man?
The only thing I know is something that Jonny told me that was told by Jeramey. Jeramey told him.
I would love to hear this.
I was told by Jonny that Jeramey said that he hung out with Sarah Ann one night and that they just talked for
5:30 in the morning.
Yeah.
Did he say that?
Yeah, he did say that, but that they just talked. But he's a man, so I don't know what to believe.
Ain't shit to say at 5:30 in the morning.
Interesting. Okay.
What do we think happens in the middle of the night when you spend the night? When you
After
spend the night,
drinking.
because I'm sorry, but 6 a.m. is the next morning.
Laura and I, we haven't seen each other in 4 days. We haven't spoken to each other in 3 days. Honestly, my last conversation with Laura, she really jumped down my throat to the point where I'm nervous to like even speak to her. Everything I say seems to get spun in a completely different direction, and I'm made out to be the bad guy. I was texting with her on Wednesday, and basically all I got in return in text messages from her was nasty fucking answers. I tried sending her flowers. She's like, you don't need my address because I don't need anything from you. And then follows that up with, it sucks to know that your name went from fiance to just Jeramey in my phone. In what fucking world would I try to fight for something like that? I was 100% on board with working things out with her and trying to solve things like that, but I learned a lot about her. I don't know if she was angry or if that's how she was actually feeling about things, but even if you're angry, I don't want to be talked to or treated like that. Yeah. And it's hard to have a conversation with someone who just runs away from something every time they get frustrated.
Tell me, what are your thoughts on the conversation that Laura, you remember they went onto the porch to have this separate conversation. What were your thoughts on the conversation that they had on the porch?
Laura's family is picking up on her unease.
Mm-hmm.
She's kind of, in a joking kind of way, bringing up all these problems as if there's still problems that bother her, but she doesn't want to really call it out. And I think they're picking that up. I think there's a split, right? There's some support of the relationship. There's also some concern, but I don't know that concern is really representative of, their feelings about Jeramey, right? It's not red flags from him. It's more so her and her descriptions of how things are going down. And I think they can also kind of pick up on how that's making him uncomfortable, right? When they were all in the kitchen talking, you could kind of see that her description was making him uncomfortable. He knew it was coming and he was kind of playing it down. And I think they picked up on that. I do wish that they would call her out on it more. It feels like they're aware that she kind of does this. And they should check her. But, I guess they're trying to be supportive in their own way.
Yeah. Absolutely agree. Laura, she referred to it as it, and she told a story about back in high school how she had all these icks and these are just certain things. And the mom said at the very start of that conversation, like, you all are like giving these mean jabs to each other, and it might be in jest, but it's not cool. And when I counsel couples in therapy, we talk about how those jabs actually lead to disconnect, which removes the fondness and the admiration that you truly desire in an interaction with your partner. And so because she makes these jabs, it makes him question who he is. And that's why her sister was so adamant about saying, this is who he is, embrace who he is. All his quirks and things is what make him, who he is. It's a part of him. And you want him to be able to express that freely, as opposed to, not expressing that or not allowing room for that to grow. And when we think about, as women, when we grow up, we have this build a bear, aka build a marriage, build a man type thing that we create in our minds. And I believe that Laura is stuck in this build a insert whatever it is here, and her anticipation of how things are supposed to look. And in reference to something she said before, she was like, I have employees, they're like looking at me, So she's aware of what she says and what she does and how it could impact her real life when she gets back to real life. So she's cognizant of it, but she's also expecting things to be and look a certain way. And we have to be very careful about the way that we try to put social media and societal expectations on ourselves and on our relationships, because they impact our relationship. Each relationship is unique, and it should be seen as such and not try to fit some cookie cutter relationship. And I feel like low-key, that's what Laura's doing. I don't think it's intentional, but it's happening, and it's making an impact in their relationship that we'll see later on became an issue. So jumping forward to, I think now this is episode 10, they have the meetup, and the girls are kind of down by the river or the pool or not the pool, whatever body of dirty water that is, because she not swimming and stuff like that, because I'm from the Caribbean. I'm just saying. But anyhow, so they're down by that dirty water having their conversation. What are your thoughts about like what was kind of going on, the dynamics of Laura and Jeramey's relationship at that time?
So I think between all of that, they had the Sarah Ann situation. So they had the fallout from that. And the result of that was they were essentially not talking, right? Laura sounded like she was kind of half out of, mostly out of the relationship. Right. But I don't know why I feel this way, but I feel like she wanted him to like push through and fight for her. And I think he wasn't willing to do that. I think he even says, as he's explaining the situation to the guys before Trevor shows up, he's explaining the situation and he's saying, this is what happened. Why would I fight for someone when, these are the responses I get? Basically, he doesn't feel as though she wants him, right? Or that she values him. And I think values is the word, right? And I think it ties back into, what you were saying about those jabs you make at each other. I think as they continued to interact, she always had jabs about how he dressed, about things about his personality, and that erodes the message that I love you for you over time. And so he didn't feel as though he really was offering her what she needed, and thus wasn't really ready to fight for her, whether he had or had not cheated on her is irrelevant when it comes to his desire to kind of fight for the relationship.
Right. I completely 100% agree with that. I feel like him meeting up with Sarah and maybe it was an opportunity for them to experience closure in their relationship, but we have no idea what was actually discussed. I get a sense that it might be around like midnight, 1 a.m. and he didn't get back in the house until 5. And the conversation with his mom when he was conveying his actions to his mom was like, I would have been up, sitting on the couch waiting for you, like, what's good? And then in other words, she was explicitly saying to him that, oh, she may not even have a daughter-in-law at this point because he truly messed up. And I feel like the way that Laura is responding to him, yes, she's upset. She has every right to be upset. But the way that you respond to your partner in anger, it informs them on how they should respond back to you and how they view themselves. And, to your point, he feels an eroded sense of self because she has continually said and done things to indicate that he isn't it. And he doesn't really quite measure up to the kind of man, the caliber of man that she generally would go for. And I think he doesn't feel that with Sarah Ann. He's never felt that with Sarah Ann. And literally, all the way up in the cues come down to the end, he had to make a choice between Laura and Sarah Ann. And it could have gone one way or the other for him, just as for I want to say, I feel like Jimmy's back and forth with Jessica and Chelsea was a bit more split. I think Jessica being a mom was a huge issue for him, but it made sense. He absolutely wanted to be with her. And I feel like Chelsea was kind of like trailing in the back. But Jeramey, it was that back and forth, and he couldn't decide. And now he's experiencing Sarah Ann, who is probably being more patient and more accepting of who he is and how he presents himself. And so now he's feeling like, okay, here, I'm accepted here. Men, I see so much on social media now. I don't know what's going on with this trend, but men are always now talking about, I want my woman to be my peace. I want my home to be my peace. And I get it, because there's this negative connotation that women are just naggy and wives are naggy. We always want or need something done, blah, 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 blah. And I feel like Jeramey is falling into those thoughts because that's what's happening now. His soon-to-be wife is very naggy about who he is, and Sarah Ann is kind of sitting here like, you are the man, you're da-da-da-da. And that's the way that she presented herself all along. So anyway, any final thoughts on that?
No, I agree with what you said. I think we'll see if Laura can recognize the role she played in kind of bringing about, I don't want to excuse his behavior, but there's definitely a role she played in that. And if she doesn't recognize that, then I'm concerned for them.
Yeah, Jeramey was wrong, no excuse. I don't want anybody to think that our conversation is excusing his behavior. Everyone know that man was wrong. He knew that he was wrong. He has said as much multiple times. So let's look or listen to this clip about Jimmy and Chelsea.
I just wanted to throw it out there that you have not asked me.
But you said I'm unwilling.
At this point, I'm unwilling. I don't have a physical relationship with them. I want you to trust me.
You do though. You fucking do. You told me you fucked her. And the fact that you're saying you're unwilling, no, I don't give a fuck. I know you fucked her and you told me that.
Because I want you to trust me.
And I do trust you, but I'm uncomfortable with it.
I told you off camera that
I know, but then
I don't want to talk about that.
I'm sorry, but
there's like a level of respect. I introduced you to her. I put her in a situation to be on camera.
And I love her, but this is a respect issue.
It was
You're not single.
It was a one-time thing.
Okay, but you're not single anymore.
It was a one-time thing.
Calling and texting and being with each other when I'm gone out of town.
It's because they care about.
It's because of what? You're not single Jimmy anymore. You're not.
I'm not out doing hanging out with women in that fashion.
Who were you with last night?
For the second, I was with 8 fraternity brothers and 2 of their girlfriends.
Okay.
Do you think I'm lying to you about that?
Yeah, I do, because I heard from other people that you were not with just fraternity brothers.
Who? Mackenzie?
Who were you with? I know it was
Jacob
Jess.
Lee, West. I was not with Jess. I've never saw Jess.
I heard it was Jess.
This conversation.
Mm-hmm. I don't want to be with someone who wants to go out a lot like you do.
Okay, well.
And if that's norm,
you're sitting here drunk, telling me you don't want to be with me anymore. So I don't
I'm sitting here.
You don't think that makes me feel like shit? I mean, if you've had too much to drink and this is how you feel, fine. But if you're willing to say sorry and work through this, I'm willing to work through it. But if you're gonna sit here and tell me that this is changing how you feel, it changes how I feel too. I love you. I'm in this for you. Met my family. You don't want to be with me anymore? You think it's okay just to say because you're emotional? Do you not think that I care about you?
You don't.
You just think I'm like full of shit every time I tell you how I feel?
I do. You know what I've given?
If you think I'm full of shit with everything I've told you, I don't care to be with you either.
All right. So, Court, what are your thoughts on Jimmy and Chelsea's interaction at the pool?
That was a fun time. I think Jimmy is trying. I see Jimmy trying to be more present, more into her. I don't know if that's what he should be doing, but I think he's trying to represent the love that he's convinced himself he has for her in a way that she can receive it.
You said the love that he has convinced himself.
Yeah. And I think that for now at least she's happy with that. It was interesting to introduce both, and I don't know if it's the way that they cut it, because it seems like this might be an event for everybody who was at the pods. Mm-hmm. Although not everybody is going to come. I assume that more people are going to show up in later episodes. But it was interesting that both Trevor and Jessica were there. And you got to see the contrast of both of their interactions. Jimmy is still uncomfortable about Trevor.
You picked that up?
Yeah. So he was talking with Jeramey, and then Jeramey went over and hugged Trevor when he walked in, I think. And at that point, Jimmy was talking to Jonny, and he was like, I don't want to continue this conversation with Trevor here. And I think he was trying to be polite, but like he feels uncomfortable with him being around, which is an interesting thing. Of course, Jessica was there. He's trying to be respectful. I think he's being conscious of how things look. I don't think he does a good job of it, but I think he's trying. When it comes to Chelsea, well, let's talk about Jimmy first, and then we'll cycle back to Chelsea. What are your thoughts on Jimmy?
I feel like I didn't pick up on the fact that he seemed a bit nervous around Trevor. I think there was an awkwardness for sure that I picked up when Trevor walked in, but there was a nervous excitement that I sensed in him when he saw Jessica. Like, wow, she's my type. And then even to the going down to when they had the conversation about that dirty body of water, and they were sitting there, they were being very, very respectful of one another. Even the content, considering the fact that they were dating, to me was very respectful. Now, I think where Jimmy's toe was touching the line was when he said, "You're still my number one."
Yeah.
And even Jessica was like, I don't know if she even knew what to do with that information. And I feel like they didn't share any more about what happened. So I imagine episode 11 is going to kind of like really get into the rest of the pool party or wherever location it was. And I don't know. I feel like I think he is being respectful too of Chelsea in the sense that he's trying to make sure that he communicates that he loves her. But keep in mind, a previous conversation that they had, he was pretty essentially saying that after that argument that they had, and he had left, that he was done. Because remember, she was going off talking about, you left her, how could you? And the way that she said that, it was just kind of like, I thought he had F Jessica. Like when they show you all the little bits and pieces, I was like, oh no, he F Jessica. I can't believe he did that. Like, why? And honestly, I was like, I couldn't bring myself to believe that Jessica would do that. So when I heard it, I was confused. But then when I saw it play out, I realized, oh, he had sex with one of his friends, and now they're just friends. And Chelsea's bringing that up. He didn't want to talk about it on camera, but he had at least communicated it to her so that she was aware, which I felt was very respectful. But she couldn't help herself because I feel like she was trying to provide rationale for why it's okay for her to be upset with Jimmy. And now we're going into Chelsea. So what are your thoughts on Chelsea and what she was going through?
Fundamentally, Chelsea has a lack of trust. And I think that trust is mostly born out of her own insecurities and maybe her past relationships. She presented her divorce as being kind of amicable. We just weren't good for each other. And I had my suspicions, but I'm pretty confident now that that's not what happened. He probably cheated on her maybe multiple times, and that's feeding into her behavior with Jimmy. I do want to focus again on that because I think that the conversation about him having sex in the past with one of his friends, it shows that she is willing to dig in whatever dirt is necessary to kind of hurt him when, when she's trying to make a point, and it's not healthy, right? It was disrespectful to the friend in particular.
Yeah.
Right? To put that on national TV. And I think that is going to, so she was freaking out, trying to control herself, but she was very uncomfortable about Jimmy talking to Jessica. But again, Jimmy was aware from the mistakes he made with AD of physical appearances. And so he kept it kosher in terms of physical appearance, touching, spacing, all of that. I appreciate him growing in that way, but I think she's still going to find a reason to have a problem with it. And I suspect that Trevor gets dragged into this. I think that Trevor and Chelsea would probably make a much better relationship. I don't know that Trevor can survive interacting with Chelsea while she's with Jimmy. I think she's going to try to use Trevor to hurt Jimmy, and that's going to screw both of them. I mean, she's focusing on, oh yeah, he's my type, oh, I'm interested, not interested, but she said some things that implied she was thinking about it, like, oh, he's my type, that's the kind of guy I go after or whatever. Yeah, he's a beefcake.
Like, jeez.
And it sucks for Trevor because he is being completely friendly and respectful and like joking about the situation and just being an all around good guy and not like offending anyone. But I think that's also going to make him kind of susceptible to her playing games.
I feel like she, to your point, piggybacking on that she might try to use Trevor to make it become this competition thing again, so that she could be elevated. So this is a very common theme and pattern among people who have self-confidence issues. First, they identify things in the other person that they're doing wrong or that they have done wrong to make sure that they are aware that they are stained and that they are not good as an opportunity to kind of bring them down to their level. And then they bring someone in, or they create a situation where jealousy can occur, where the other person could become jealous. So you could be like, see, you're jealous too. I'm not the only one, right? And then now the person then has to feel, because what happens in turn is the person then becomes defensive. And they feel like they have to try to honor the purpose or the commitment to the relationship, in the sense, because it's a relationship, they're an engagement. And so Jimmy, in turn, would end up wanting to demonstrate and show good faith and do all these things. And it can make him and the other person have an out. And then she was going to turn around and be like, see, look at how you're acting. You're not any better than I am.
Yeah.
This is a pattern that exists in relationships, all as a means of trying to come out and showboat as though you're better than the other person, only because it's stemming from the lack of confidence. And it's going to all play out, and poor Trevor is going to get looped into it. I think Jessica is a bit stronger. I think Jessica is just like, no, if you chose her, go with her, finish that situation first before you. I feel that Jessica might entertain a relationship with Jimmy, but not until after Jimmy has really made a choice and has fleshed out the situation with Chelsea. But like I said, I don't think, and to your point about Jimmy trying to show and demonstrate that he really loved and cares for Chelsea, even though it's not really the case, I think Jimmy's going to eventually come to that point where he realizes that, and it's going to make him realize that all the emotions and everything that he had, that he was experiencing for Chelsea, was really his transferred emotions from Jessica. And he's going to have to try to figure out, well, my honest issue with Jessica is the fact that I'm like low-key afraid of her, and I have to see, I don't want to have my foot to the fire. And I think he's the kind of woman that's going to keep his foot to the fire, like make him accountable. And he doesn't want to have to do that with Chelsea. He doesn't really have to do that. She's more like whiny and babyish, and I'm sorry that I had to put it so bluntly, but that's the reality. That's how I see it. That's how I view it. And I don't think that Chelsea would be able to have a successful relationship, because this is a pattern of behavior that she's accustomed to doing, and she doesn't know how to stop herself.
Yeah. And I think a point I wanted to bring up, first I agree with everything you said, but I want to bring up a point that context is key, and this is something that I think is important that the show is doing, right? So they got some time where it was just the two of them to experience each other, but you don't live your life in a vacuum. And so having the other people around is a reality check, because the people dated in the past don't go away. I know a lot of people will say, oh, I don't want my person to have any friends of the opposite sex, or any, I don't want them talking to their exes. And for each person, you have to understand what that
And
balance
even be
is.
opposite sex friends.
Right. Yeah, I think you have to understand what that balance is. Like you said, I have close female friends, and that's something that, my wife has to be comfortable with. Your husband has to be comfortable with our relationship. I'm a person who keeps in close contact with a lot of my exes, and my wife has to be comfortable with that. Part of it is knowing and trusting your spouse, but also recognizing the message that comes through in that, right? Because you can assume that everything is an attempt of the person to kind of have their cake and eat it too, right? I want everything, so I'm gonna have her, and I'm gonna get what I want from all of these people. And to an extent you do, right? Everybody, all of your friendships give you something that builds into the support system that you need. But part of having a touch point with people you've had relationships with in the past is to keep the rose-colored glasses from, changing your view of what happened, at least for me, right? So for Jimmy in particular with Laura, I think you're 100% right. I don't see her kind of going along and being some little side fling just to see what happens. I think for her, she's gonna be like, well, if you want me, that's cool. You need to be very clear and divest yourself of all of this stuff first, and hold him accountable for that. He may or may not like that, but he'll be forced to deal with it, which may push him towards Chelsea again because it's easier, or maybe he'll decide that the crap he's going through with her isn't worth it because it's actually not easier, right? But let's assume that Chelsea and Jimmy had a good relationship, then even if he saw her and he was like, oh, yo, she's fine, like I should have gone there, after talking to her and her still not filling that kind of simp role where she wants to be like, I'll do whatever I can to get you, which is not commentary on Sarah Ann, because I do feel like Sarah Ann is like, I'll do whatever I can to get you. But I think Jessica's personality shines through. And so the problems that you've had with the people you've interacted with don't just go away. And sometimes it's good to have that touch point to make sure that you keep context in mind.
Yeah. Well, I think we've made some valuable points, about relationships, about what we're experiencing here, from what we're seeing between the couples. So we'll wait to see how everything goes on. And thank you so much for your time on being here with me. And hopefully I see you again.
Yeah, we'll see how this all plays out.
All right. Well, take care. Have a good one.